The world knew him as Korea's most coveted idol, but to her, he was just another stranger. In a life where the spotlight never dims, could he ever find love with someone who sees him for who he truly is? Chapter 1. Jinwoo Kim, better known as Jae-woo, is at the peak of his career as the lead singer of the K-pop supergroup Eclipse. He's adored worldwide, and with every new performance, his fame skyrockets. However, behind the flashing lights and screaming fans, Jinwoo is exhausted. The constant pressure of living up to the idol persona has taken a toll on him, and all he yearns for is normalcy. One evening, after a particularly grueling concert, Jinwoo sneaks out in disguise, dressed down in a hoodie and cap, and visits a quiet part of Seoul to find solace. He wanders into a small, independently owned bookstore. That's when he meets Hannah, the owner's daughter. Hannah is a reserved, introverted girl who spends her days managing the bookstore and caring for her sick mother. She's never been interested in celebrities or the glamorous world they represent. To her, the real world is much more grounded and meaningful. The two strike up a conversation over a book recommendation. Jinwoo is stunned by how different Hannah is from anyone he's ever met. She doesn't recognize him and doesn't treat him like a superstar. This initial encounter leaves Jinwoo intrigued. Chapter 2. Jinwoo begins visiting the bookstore regularly under the guise of an ordinary customer, each time more fascinated by Hannah's wit, kindness, and love for literature. He uses a fake name, Jiho, to protect his true identity. Hannah begins to look forward to his visits, appreciating the quiet yet mysterious company he offers. As the days turn into weeks, Jinwoo starts to feel alive again, away from the prying eyes of the public. He realizes that he's slowly falling for Hannah. But how can he tell her who he really is without risking the only real connection he's had in years? Chapter 3. Their conversations move beyond books. Jinwoo opens up, though still withholding his identity, about his struggles with living a double life, one that isn't entirely happy. Hannah shares her own fears of losing the bookstore due to her mother's medical bills. Jinwoo starts helping around the shop in subtle ways, even staying late to organize the shelves and clean up. He is drawn to Hannah's simplicity, while she finds comfort in his quiet presence. One evening, Jinwoo walks Hannah home after a long day at the shop. There, under the soft glow of the streetlights, he catches himself staring at her longer than usual. She smiles at him, unaware of the turmoil within him. He knows he needs to tell her the truth, but he's too afraid to lose what they have. Chapter 4. Meanwhile, Eclipse is preparing for their next major tour. Jinwoo's life becomes increasingly hectic, and he starts missing his usual visits to the bookstore. Hannah notices his absence and starts to wonder why he's pulling away. One day, Hannah catches a glimpse of a poster advertising Eclipse's upcoming concert. She's never been into K-pop, but something about one of the members catches her eye. It's Jinwoo, or rather, Jae-woo. Shocked, she realizes that Jiho is, in fact, Korea's most famous idol. Her heart sinks. She feels betrayed that he didn't trust her with the truth. Hurt, she decides to confront him. Chapter 5. Jinwoo returns to the bookstore after weeks of avoiding it, only to find Hannah waiting for him. Her eyes are filled with both anger and hurt. "You lied to me," she says, showing him the concert poster. Jinwoo's heart drops. He tries to explain himself, telling her that he was afraid of losing her once she knew who he really was. But Hannah isn't convinced. She feels used, like she was just an escape from his glamorous world. Jinwoo pleads with her, saying that his feelings for her are real, that he's never felt more like himself than when he's with her. Hannah, still hurt, tells him she needs time to process everything and asks him to leave. Chapter 6. Weeks go by, and Hannah and Jinwoo remain distant. Hannah throws herself into taking care of her mother and running the bookstore, trying to ignore the lingering feelings she still has for Jinwoo. Meanwhile, Jinwoo, heartbroken, struggles to keep up with his idol responsibilities. His performance suffers, and his bandmates notice his declining spirit. Jinwoo's management pushes him to focus on his career, but he can't shake his feelings for Hannah. He tries reaching out to her, but Hannah avoids his calls and texts. Chapter 7. Hannah, on the other hand, starts to miss Jinwoo. She realizes that despite his fame, the moments they shared were genuine. She begins to question whether she was too harsh in pushing him away. Her mother, noticing Hannah's sadness, gives her advice on forgiveness and love, reminding her that people aren't perfect, but genuine love is rare. At the same time, Jinwoo reflects on how his life as an idol has always felt incomplete. He realizes that his feelings for Hannah aren't something he can ignore. He's willing to give up his career if it means having a life with her. Chapter 8. In a last attempt to win her back, Jinwoo makes a grand public gesture, something he's never done before. He goes on a national television show and openly admits to being in love with a woman who has no idea what his world is like, but who makes him feel alive. He doesn't reveal Hannah's identity, but his confession causes a media storm. Fans are curious, but Jinwoo doesn't care. For the first time, he's putting his heart ahead of his career. He leaves everything behind to go to the bookstore one last time, hoping Hannah will forgive him. Chapter 9. On a quiet afternoon, Jinwoo walks into the bookstore, unsure if Hannah will ever want to see him again. But there she is, standing by the register. Hannah looks at him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Jinwoo apologizes, telling her he'll walk away from everything if it means having her in his life. Hannah is silent, but then she steps forward and wraps her arms around him. "I never asked you to give up your dreams," she says softly. "I just wanted to know that I mattered more." Jinwoo smiles, holding her close. In that moment, they both know that while their worlds are different, their love is real. Chapter 10. Jinwoo decides to continue his career as an idol, but with a new perspective. He no longer hides who he is, and Hannah, though not a fan of the celebrity lifestyle, supports him from the sidelines. Their relationship remains private, protected from the public eye, but Jinwoo feels more at peace knowing he has someone who loves him for who he truly is. As for Hannah, she continues running the bookstore, content with her simple life. She knows the road ahead will be difficult, but with Jinwoo by her side, she feels ready for anything. In a world where fame can steal your soul, he found his heart in the quietest of places. Sometimes, the greatest love stories aren't the ones lived in the spotlight, but in the moments only two people share,